Oh, that's weird. You went away. Oh, there you are. Welcome to another episode of The Bitter Pill. I'm joined today by my guest, Misty Winston, who's been on the show before. Misty is an all-around activist and um, has especially been focused on trying to get Julian Assange his freedom. And we've talked about that a number of times before on the show. But right now, Misty is one of the people involved in organizing a tour of a number of cities in the United States by Julian Assange's dad and half
Brother,
brother is
half
brother.
brother, yes.
Yeah. Um, and that's going on right now. I think it's in New York, or it was yesterday. I forget,
Today,
or today.
tonight.
Uh, and we'll be coming to hopefully a town somewhere near you sometime soon. Um, so I'll just let you go ahead and talk about that, Misty. Like, how did this come about? Where's it going to be? Et
So the
cetera.
tour is called Home Run for Julian. It's kind of a baseball theme. And it started in Australia and New Zealand. They did multiple cities and locations around there. They're now in the States. They kicked it off in Miami on the 6th. And then they've also been to Boston yesterday. And then today they're in New York from 6 to 8. There's an event tonight, which is featuring Roger Waters and Chris Hedges and all kinds of really cool people.
Aaron Mate.
Um, Aaron Mate, Randy Credico, a bunch of people are going to be there. So tonight's event should be really fun. They're going to a bunch of different cities. For example, Philadelphia is June 11th, DC. They're going to be there on the 13th, and then also again on from July 30th through or June 30th through July 1st. So then after that is the Columbus, Ohio stop, which is the one that I'm organizing. I'm in Columbus, so Andrew and I from Action for Assange are organizing that event. Chicago is June 17th. Milwaukee is June 19th. Let's see, Madison, June 20th. Minneapolis, St. Paul is June 21st. Denver is June 23rd. Portland, June 24th. Oakland, June 26th. San Francisco, June 27th. Los Angeles, June 28th and 29th. And then again, like I said, DC is June 30th and July 1st. And those dates and locations are kind of fluid. There are some that are definitely locked in, set in, but this is really just a handful of people trying to organize this to get support and just the word out about what's happening to Julian Assange. His father and his half brother are touring around. They're going to different locations. Each event is kind of different. They're really leaning heavily on local organizers to kind of do what works best for your city or your town. So in Columbus, we're doing more of like a rally thing. They've had some where it's more of like a panel where they're sitting behind a table and having a conversation. So we're going to do a little bit of both. It's going to be mostly a rally, more of like a protest situation, but we also want to have an opportunity for people to be able to speak to John and Gabriel, ask them questions, stuff like that. The idea, I think, is really just to humanize Julian Assange at this point. There's been a decade-long smear campaign against him, which has created like this comic book character, like this villain out of him. And so I think that the effort now is really just rehumanizing him and letting people know that he is a person with a family, with children and a partner and a father and a mother. And so they're really just trying to get out there, get the word out, and really impress upon people how dire the situation is.
Yeah, I'm really glad they're doing it. I wish they had done this earlier, but I'm really happy to see that has come together. I noticed on the schedule there's a date. I think it's after the one in Columbus for Eastern Kentucky. Where is that,
That
and who's
was
there?
one that they were supposed to be doing. Again, like I said, the schedule has been very fluid. I think currently it's now off of the schedule. I'm looking at the website right now, and it's not on there anymore. It's
Oh,
been kind of fluid throughout. Again, this is just a handful of people that have been trying to organize this, put this together, fundraise for it, make sure everything's going where it needs to go. They've been Eastern Kentucky, they looked at, they were thinking about potentially Indianapolis. There's a couple different locations that were like maybe nots. So it's really just as we move along, things will
yeah.
get more kind of set in stone. If you look at the website now, there are multiple locations that have set times, set locations, all of that stuff. And there are others that just haven't gotten, wherever they're going to have their events at or whatever. So if you go to AssangeDefense.org/tour, that's the easiest place to find it. Or if you go to their Twitter page or my Twitter feed, we're all tweeting about it constantly, trying to get the word out. So if there's a location near you where they're going to be having one of those events, please try to make it out. It's a really big deal. And if you can just help boost all of the events, share them on your social media, talk to them about your friends if you're in an area where there's one happening. Again, it's really just like a bunch of like dedicated Assange activists who are trying to make the most of this and try to figure out a way to make this a successful tour. So.
Yeah, great. Do you know anything about how it's been going so far? Like, I know he's been in Miami, or they've been in Miami and
Miami, Boston, and then today's New York. Boston was great yesterday. Miami was great too. Boston was awesome. They were able to do 2 separate events. One was outside, one was inside at a church where Julian Assange was given an award, which was accepted obviously on his behalf by his brother and his father. The Boston event was really fantastic. They had a great turnout. I'm sure New York is going to be great. It's an indoor event, so there were tickets allocated. Those sold out. They were then allowed to increase the crowd size twice, and it sold out both times. And by sold out, I mean it just tickets were gone. Like there's no charge for it. It's just that you have to go and make a reservation or whatever. Those are both times that they've been able to increase the crowd size. It's quote unquote sold out. They do have an amazing lineup though: Roger Waters, Chris Hedges, Randy Credico, Aaron Maté. They're able to bring in some pretty heavy hitters when you're in New York. So that should be a really awesome event. It's going to be live streamed by Consortium News, which they've been doing a fantastic job of trying to deal with the logistics of trying to figure out how they can live stream each of these events, which is really quite complicated because they have to get in touch with the local organizers because, again, the Assange defense people are really leaning heavily on local organizers to make these events happen. So, they're trying to coordinate with all these different people to make sure that each of these events is live streamed, and they've been doing a great job. So if anybody's interested in watching the live streams, that's definitely one of the places that you can do it.
Okay. Well, that's good. They can only go so many places, and personally, I'm hoping maybe I can get over your way there in Columbus for that event, but I don't know. We'll see. But definitely, everybody keep in mind if you can't make it to one of these events, you can watch it on the internet. So that's great to hear.
Yes.
And it's Consortium News's website that's doing it?
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, they've been doing a great job. We're coordinating with them. Sleepy Josh is helping me so that we can make sure that everything goes without a hitch so that they can have a live stream of our event, which is Monday, June 14th. It's really cool that they're putting in that amount of effort to make sure that everybody can participate, even if you can't make it out to a physical event. Everybody should be able to watch and check them out. They're going to be great events. And there's some really dedicated organizers and activists who are putting a lot of work and effort into this. So it's really cool to see.
So I'm sorry you got cut off there for a minute.
Oh, just that there's a lot of really dedicated organizers who are really putting a lot of work in. So it's just really cool to see. It's really cool to see the support that's been growing over the past couple of years since the arrest specifically. There's been a huge groundswell of support. I think really just more awareness. I think before the arrest, people didn't really care, didn't know who Julian Assange was, but I think the arrest really kind of lit something. And people are now more curious about what's happening to him. So we've seen a lot of support grow over the past couple of years.
Great. Yeah. And so are they still are they raising funds for the tour or anything?
They are. I think that you can, if you go to AssangeDefense.org, they are trying to raise money to offset costs for the flights and hotels and gas to drive and food and all of that stuff. They obviously appreciate anything that people can donate. This is really just, his dad and his brother and Assange Defense trying to put together this tour and make things happen. So, if anybody wants to donate to that, you can absolutely do that. And if you are in an area where there's a protest being held or an action or an event being held, and you want to help with that, I can tell you that all of the local organizers would be more than willing to have an extra set of hands. So if you need help contacting somebody, if you're in Denver and you need to know somebody to contact in Denver, let me know and I can help get you in touch with people. So if you want to help out, I mean, we need help, hanging flyers and, setting up and tearing down and all of those things that need to happen for an event to happen. So if you're in one of the areas and you want to be more involved and you want to, get out there, then definitely let me know. And I'd be happy to set you up with people who are in the different cities where events are taking place.
Yeah, great. And for anybody that doesn't know how to get a hold of Misty, she's at Sarcasm Stardust on Twitter.
And I'm there all the time. So you can find me. I'll be there.
Yeah. Anything else you wanted to say about the Assange tour, or have you pretty much covered it?
No, I think that really, just right now, as far as the Assange case goes, we're still waiting for word on the appeal. There is no deadline for that, so it's really just kind of an up in the air thing. And what's happening to Julian in the meantime is, literally, he's being tortured. And the fact that there is no set court date and there is no set release date, he's not even been convicted or anything, charged with anything. He's just in limbo. And that's a huge part of the torture of what's happening to him. So it really, I say this all the time. I know I get to be sounding like a little bit of a broken record, but it really is going to take mass public pressure for this to change, for Julian Assange to be released, and for the assaults on our First Amendment and press freedom and free speech to cease. And they're really never going to cease. This is going to be an ongoing battle because people in power don't want their secrets exposed. So this is always going to be a fight that we have to wage. But right now we're in a really serious circumstance. This is by far the greatest threat to press freedom that we've ever seen. And it really is. We're hanging on by a thread. We're really just about to lose it all. And it doesn't matter what
you're going after Craig Murray too.
They're going after journalists across the board. I mean, if you really across the globe, there's journalists being arrested and murdered, brutalized. I mean, if you just look at the way that journalists at protests are being treated in the United States, they're being photographed, they're being tracked, they're being beaten, they're being shot with rubber bullets and tear gas and all of those things. And this is really happening across the globe. It's a really serious situation. The ramp up of attacks on media have been pronounced over the past 10 or 15 years. So this really is like a very serious situation. It's a very, the situation couldn't be more dire at this point. And if Julian Assange is allowed to be extradited, that sets a precedent that will be really difficult, if not impossible, to come back from. And so basically, essentially what the United States is seeking is global jurisdiction over media and information. And I don't know anybody that shouldn't terrify, unless you're like a 1%er, unless you're a billionaire and a war criminal and an oligarch, that should terrify you. I don't want the United States to have global jurisdiction over information. And that's essentially what they're seeking. So this is something that we really need to fight incredibly hard. And I understand that it's been something that has been, Julian Assange has once again been smeared for a decade, and it's been made taboo to support him and all of those things. But people really need to stop looking past Julian Assange and seeing the big picture, because it really is about so much more than him. I mean, of course, his life is worth fighting for, but this really is so much bigger than that.
Yeah. And, it's important for people to recognize that, whatever you think about Julian Assange, and if you think he's a terrible person or whatever, you are the victim of a propaganda campaign.
But it doesn't matter. Well, it doesn't matter.
It shouldn't matter.
Right.
But we should also say he's actually done great things and is not what he's been accused of. But also, just bear in mind, he is a political prisoner. Literally, there are no charges against him currently in Britain, where he's being held in a maximum security prison. He's been held there without charge for over a year now.
2 years.
And, he's an Australian citizen, and he's being persecuted by Britain and the United States for acts of journalism.
Yes. And nobody has broken more stories. Nobody's exposed more war crimes and corruption and criminality than Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. Nobody. And it's not even close. And not only have they exposed more, they've never gotten it wrong. They have a 100% record of accuracy. There is not another media organization on planet Earth that has that record. What they do is invaluable. And again, what they do is they don't offer you conjecture. It's not some like talking head giving you their opinion. They show you source documentation. It makes journalism as much of a science as is humanly possible. There is no opinion. It's It's not like, just some pontification. It is source documentation. Here's the evidence. You look it over and then decide what you want to make of it. And to me, that's an invaluable service. And it's no surprise that they have gone out of their way to demonize him to the extent that they have. He has made incredibly powerful enemies. And so, again, whatever you think you know about Julian Assange, it's probably wrong. They've done a very good job of misleading people and dehumanizing him. And it's been very effective. I mean, I will give them credit. Their propaganda campaign has been very effective against this one person. But they have spent, over a decade trying to destroy this one human being. And you have to ask yourself why. And so, all I ask of people is just take a step back, take a deep breath, shake off the propaganda and look at it with an objective viewpoint, because what's happening to Julian Assange, it genuinely affects you. This is not just something that's happening to Julian Assange. This is a huge deal. It cannot be understated how big of a deal this is, because, again, this really will set an unbelievably dangerous precedent moving forward. And press freedom is foundational to democracy. And we don't have a democracy now, but if we ever do wish to have one, we're going to need a free press. And I don't know about y'all, but I would like to know when my government is doing really terrible things in my name and with my money. Again, what Julian Assange and WikiLeaks has given to us has really been an invaluable gift. And I would love for everybody to understand and appreciate that and respect the work that they do. But even if you don't, you need to just be selfish about this and understand that this comes for you. This is not just going to stop with Julian Assange. This will come for you. And it affects the information that you're allowed to inform yourself with. You should be able to have access to, the war crimes and corruption and knowledge of that your government is committing across the globe. I mean, that's just...
Yeah, and, the arrest of Julian Assange and, his imprisonment essentially without internet access in the Ecuadorian embassy before that, it has affected the work of WikiLeaks. Like, they still have come out with stuff, but they haven't.
One of my favorite stories.
Nearly as.
Yeah, one of my favorite stories is just the fact that Julian Assange was 7 years into illegal and arbitrary detention as proclaimed by the UN, and knew he was public enemy number one of the most powerful people on planet Earth. And he released Vault 7 anyway, which was the largest CIA leak in history. So that's the kind of man that we're dealing with. That's the kind of man. I mean, this is, again, whatever your personal opinions about him, I don't really care. I've never met Julian Assange. He could be the biggest asshole on planet Earth. I don't know, nor do I care. To me, what matters is the work, and the fact that he was willing to do something like that, to, put out the greatest CIA leak in history when he's already 7 years into illegal and arbitrary detention, and he's stuck in a tiny Ecuadorian embassy, and he knows that he is, really in danger. To me, that shows character. And that's important to me. And I think that that's really, it's a critical thing. It's a crucial thing that we should definitely be supportive of and, fighting for.
Yeah, and what I was going to say is just, unfortunately, this persecution of Julian Assange has had the intended effect of making it harder for WikiLeaks to do its work. So they haven't been able to put out as much stuff since they've had to focus on defending Julian Assange, and other people have. And probably people who might have leaked to WikiLeaks before, maybe are scared to now. Which
the chilling effect is noticeable. It's not just with whistleblowers. Yes, there would be a ton more whistleblowers if it hadn't been for the. I mean, we treat our truth tellers in this country like garbage. John Kiriakou exposed a torture program. The only person that ever was punished for exposing a literal torture program was the guy who exposed it, John Kiriakou. Chelsea Manning and Julian Assange were the only people who were ever punished for exposing war crimes. Joshua Schultz, Daniel Hale. I mean, if you just look across the board, we only punish the truth teller. We don't punish the actual people that they've exposed. And that's a real problem in this country. But the chilling effect that it has had, watching these people be persecuted and their lives destroyed, it's noticeable. It's marked. I mean, you can see it. And it's really been dangerous for journalism. I don't think anybody would be surprised to see or to know that our journalism in this country is absolute garbage. And a huge part of that is because of the chilling effect that has happened from journalists watching the persecution of Julian Assange. I can't imagine being a journalist in this climate and trying to have the courage to stand against empire, because we see what happens to those people. So yeah, it's really dangerous just across the board. And it's really just it's more about, the fact that he's being detained, the things that they've done to him, the human rights abuses that have gone on over the past decade or so. Really, it's been more than a decade. But I mean, the fact that he was spied on in the Ecuadorian embassy, and that, his phone calls, his meetings with his lawyers, everything was taped, recorded, sent to the CIA. Yeah. There's a court case right now in Spain for UC Global, which was the security firm that was supposed to be doing security for the Ecuadorian embassy, but really they were just a CIA cutout to spy on Julian Assange. Right. They stole one of his baby's diapers, trying to find out if it was actually his child, and he's unable to participate in his own defense. It took him 6 months to get a laptop, and then they glued the keys down, so he can't participate in his own defense. Yeah, he has no access to he's unable to participate in his own defense. He's unable to meet with his lawyers. There's been times during COVID where he hasn't seen his lawyers for 6 or 7 months. He is in a battle against the United States of America, and he's unable to mount a legitimate defense. He can't. He has no access to his legal papers. He has no. It's really absurd. It's completely bizarre that people are witnessing this, and it's just allowed to happen in broad daylight.
Yeah. It's like, whatever the U.S. Constitution or its equivalent says in the U.K. as far as what rights criminal defendants have, they don't respect any of that. Like, Julian Assange has no rights that are recognized by the U.S. or the U.K. whatsoever to defend himself against, obviously fabricated charges.
Well, what I find interesting is they want to charge him under U.S. law, but he's afforded none of the protections of the First Amendment, which, we want to have our cake and eat it too. I just think it's interesting that we want to prosecute him under U.S. law, but he is afforded none of the protections offered by the First Amendment. Right. So, we want to have our cake and eat it too.
Yeah. Yeah, the First Amendment or any other amendment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I will put links in the description to the video of resources to support the campaign, or to find out. Katie Johnstone has a great resource for debunking some of the myths about Julian Assange.
That article is a must-have in your arsenal. Please bookmark it. It is unbelievably necessary to have that, for sure.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, but if anybody wants to check out the tour, you can, again, go to assangedefense.org /tour, and that's where all the tour dates and information is listed. And then also, there's also Julian Assange's 50th birthday is July 3rd. And so there are events popping up all across the globe. An excellent resource if you're ever interested in Julian Assange actions or events that are taking place at any time. My friend Alex Hills is a phenomenal organizer and activist. She's a badass. But she does an amazing job of keeping track of, collecting, and organizing all of the events across the globe, and then tweeting them out. She's got a Facebook page, but you can find her at Candles for Assange. And so she regularly tweets out all of the different events from all across the globe. Literally, she does a very good job of seeking out different events and then making sure that, she gets the word out about them. So that's definitely, if you're ever interested in any Assange events, that's definitely like the one-stop shop for all of that stuff.
Okay. Yeah, if you could send me that link, I will get that in there too.
Absolutely.
One other thing it just occurred to me just before we got on this call. One other thing that I wanted to run by you while I have you on the show is there was a police murder in Columbus, there where you are, a couple of months ago. I forget how you say your name, Micaiah Bryant?
I think, yeah.
Yeah. And has that pretty much dropped out of the news there too? Because I haven't seen anything about it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, it was kind of distressing for me to see that everybody and their brother were defending the cop who killed her. And I was like, if this were any other country, that would not have happened. First of all, police don't even carry guns typically in a lot of other countries. And secondly, they're a lot more restrained about pulling out their gun if they have one.
Well, they actually
So,
receive adequate training and, de-escalation and all of that stuff, which is, a novel idea. Maybe we should give that a try.
yeah,
But yeah, the people that were defending that cop, it was really frustrating to me. Yeah, I understand she had a knife. I also understand that those girls showed up to her house threatening her, and she's the one that called the cops because she felt threatened.
yeah,
And so, if you can't de-escalate a fight between some teenage girls without a gun, maybe you shouldn't be a cop. It's really not that complicated. And, this teenage girl is now dead. And
yeah,
so, yeah, and that has really dropped out of the news. I mean, there's a couple local organizing groups that have, really tried to do a good job of keeping her name out there. But I mean, you know how it is. People have a very short attention span. And so it's on to the
yeah,
next very quickly.
yeah. So it is. So what specifically have people tried to do there? I know there were some protests in the city and on campus at Ohio State, maybe, and
Yeah,
uh,
there were some protests. There are still occasional protests here and there, not specifically for her, but just police brutality. The Columbus Police Department is out of control.
yeah,
They're currently. I think they may have already named a new police chief, but there's a whole thing about getting a new police chief and all of this stuff. But legitimately, the Columbus Police Department is completely out of control. I think that they're tied for second for number of children killed. I think
wow,
Chicago's the only one that beats us, and then we're tied with New York for second. So,
wow,
and CPD is it's garbage. It's complete trash.
yeah,
And so I'm a big fan of abolishing the police, or if you want to say defund, that's fine too, because that's how we get to abolish. But yeah, Columbus, the police department is like the poster child for exactly why that needs to happen. They're completely out of control. And they're given a shit ton of money.
yeah,
The city's budget is like over half, something crazy or something like that to police
yeah,
services. And it's just nuts. So
yeah,
yeah, there's been some local organizing groups that have had like police brutality, and her name's always, you see them on the posters, and you hear people talking about her and stuff like that. People will try on social media to, remind people about her. But yeah, it's people have very short attention spans, and it's very easy to, get people talking about something else.
yeah, and seems like police shootings are along with rape the two kinds of incidents where you know like the negative portrayals are almost always of the victims and not the perpetrators. It's just, I mean, it's continuous and it's very frustrating. Um, and we even see it, among people who call themselves progressive or on the left or whatever. This victim blaming mentality,
Mm-hmm.
and that needs to
Those are, it,
change.
it is, you're right though, that is, it's immediately victim blaming. It's immediate
Yeah,
victim blaming. When there's somebody who's a victim of police brutality, they always show, the worst picture possible of them, of like some teenage kid with a gun on his Facebook or whatever, trying to look cool. And that's what they show to everybody. They don't show
yeah,
them the pictures of them, hanging out at their grandma's house or the family photo, or, they always, and it's a very intentional misdirection.
yeah,
And they're very good at it. I mean, they're very, very good at it. But, and you're right, they do the same thing with rape victims,
yeah,
especially if they're politically inconvenient rape victims like Tara
yeah.
Reid.
Tara Reid,
Um,
yeah,
yeah. So yeah, it's a problem, and it's we really have to try to figure out how we can address that.
yeah. Well, since we're on the subject of what to do about police brutality, a lot of people, when they hear terms like defund the police or abolish the police, they have this misconception that people are saying, well, we just are going to let criminals run wild or something. So, you know, maybe we could talk about what people actually mean when they say that.
People said that understand that defund the police, and you can use that money to address the causes of crime,
Yeah,
poverty, joblessness, homelessness, stuff like that. And I think that people would be incredibly surprised once we deal with those things, how amazing the effect on would be. You have to
uh,
deal.
you're breaking up a little, Misty. You'd be amazed at what?
I would be amazed how effective dealing with crime would be. we take money.
Shoot. Yeah, man, I'm losing ya. Are you? Can you hear me? Okay. Shoot. Looks like you're frozen, and I can't hear you. Do you wanna? Oh.
Can you hear me at all? Am I
now
back?
I can hear you. Yeah, you're back now. Okay.
Okay.
Oh.
Anyways, but I think if we deal with the causes of crime, I think that's really where our efforts should be at. And we spend an exorbitant amount of money on police forces. And if we use that money on homelessness and joblessness and poverty and making sure people have health care and access to education and all of that stuff, we're not going to have to worry about as much crime. I think that a lot of crime can be dealt with through social services. We don't need necessarily a police force to deal with a lot of those things. So I understand when people freak out a little bit about, oh, just gonna let criminals run rampant. No, that's not the idea. But the idea is that we can spend some of the money that's being used on police forces to actually be proactive instead of reactive and deal with at its root rather than not addressing those issues and just dealing with as it's committed. We could eliminate a lot of crime if we really examine where it's coming from.
Exactly. And I saw a figure recently that the total amount of money spent on police forces in the United States is more than the amount of money that everybody except the U.S. and China spends on military spending. More than every other country's military budget is spent on police in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lot of money that we could spend in more useful ways. And that's not to say that we probably would want to have some sort of security force to deal with if there's like a mass shooter or some other dangerous person about. We should still have somebody available to address that, but there should be accountability. So community control of whatever police or security force or whatever we want to call it we have, rather than this being this unaccountable bureaucracy that you can't even hold them criminally liable. And
and it's an uncontrolled bureaucracy that's militarized. I mean, it's literally an occupying force, essentially. I mean, there's no accountability. There's no, and they're walking around with weapons of war. That's absurd. You don't need that in your communities. I mean, communities can police themselves. And it should be local. You should live in the same community that you're policing. You have cops who are living 3 towns over who are coming into work in a poor neighborhood, and they don't know those people. They don't have no, what I mean? It's a completely ridiculous and corrupted system. It doesn't work. It doesn't make any sense. And that people are so resistant to changing it is really depressing to me, because it's very obvious that it's broken. Cops are just, all they are is bodyguards of capital. We really need to rethink the entire system entirely. I mean, from scratch. We got to start over.
Yeah, absolutely. And big city police forces literally go over to Israel to get training from the Israeli military in policing.
That's where the knee on the neck comes from. You see IDF do that all the time. That's where that come from. Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah, and IDF is literal terrorists. They're a terrorist organization. I mean, come for me if you want, but that's legit, and that's who's training our cops.
That's right. Yeah. Are there other topics that pop into your head as things that have been on your mind lately?
We just did a really amazing interview with an on-the-ground activist in Colombia about the strike and the protests that are happening in Colombia. That'll be out soon. I would highly recommend you guys check this out. It's The situation, I don't know if you're super familiar with it, but it's really,
Yeah.
really, really bad right now. Colombia's
Yes.
been in a pretty bad way for a while. They are a puppet state of U.S. empire, have been for some time, but it's really, really gotten bad. The latest round of strikes that started, I think around in April, mid-April, started as like just a protest against some tax reform, some neoliberal tax reform bullshit that they were trying to pass. But very quickly, it has radicalized in a huge way. The guy that we were talking to today said it feels different than anything else that's ever happened there before. It's a really big deal. The cops are slaughtering people in the streets. They're killing up to 10
Yeah.
protesters a day. And it's really gotten bad. They're trying to do these what they're calling points of resistance, where they're blockading highways or critical infrastructure. And they were doing that and only letting through food and ambulances. And then the cops caught on to that and decided to infiltrate that system. And so they were then getting into ambulances and then shooting protesters from there. So it's a really dangerous and scary situation right now for our
Yeah.
brothers and sisters in Colombia. Definitely check out that interview and inform yourselves on what's happening there, because Western media is not covering it at all, of course. There are some independent journalists who are doing a great job. Dan Cohen's done a great job on covering it so far, but definitely inform yourselves about what's happening there, because it's part of the larger global struggle against empire. And it's a really big deal. This one, it could be a catalyst, but we have to support them as much as we can.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't know how closely folks that are watching follow Colombia, but I mean, basically, if you could imagine a government that's run by drug lords, this is that government, and it's been that way for
Quite
decades.
literally, yes, yeah, and
Yeah,
it's terrifying. It's really scary. It's a fascistic. It's like a mafia. I mean, really.
yeah,
So this is it really is kind of. I keep saying that we need global solidarity against global solidarity against empire, and that really is what we need. And so if we can kind of try to join with Palestinians, with Colombians, with Venezuelans, and really try to hold global solidarity movements. That's really what it's going to take, because none of us are in this on our own. We're all in the same fight. And so I think, really informing yourself on these geopolitical struggles is a huge deal.
yeah. And I think you might have gotten cut off when you said the name of the person you were interviewing. Um,
Oh no, I don't think I said.
oh,
His name is Julian. He again, the fact that he spoke to us is very courageous. He put his life at risk to speak to us.
wow. Yeah,
That's how serious it is there. People are just disappearing. Like they're being disappeared,
yeah,
and then they'll show up in a river. A couple weeks later. So it was
yeah.
very courageous of him. He's part of a coalition of students down there, and they've kind of taken it because there's like a
Of what?
national. What's that?
You got cut off when you said what group he was with.
Oh, it's just like an organization of students. It's called
Okay.
ASEU, but it's like the Colombian Association of University Students. It's gotten a little bit broader than that. They're including some other people other than just university students. But the recent strike started with the National Strike Committee, which is like a bunch of trade unions and stuff like that. But it really radicalized quickly, and the youth really took over very fast. And that's so the Trade Strike Committee has really become irrelevant to this fight, and it's really been taken over by the youth of Colombia. They're really in the struggle for self-determination, essentially. I mean,
Yeah,
Colombia experiences some of the worst inequality on planet Earth. Like
yeah,
43% of Colombians live in poverty, 15% live in extreme poverty. It's terrible. So that's really what
yeah,
they're up against. And it's because of neoliberal policies and the drug lords and the fact that Western imperialism they're a puppet state. So yeah, this is our fight. I mean, it's not, Colombians aren't in this on their own. Americans really need to understand that this is our fight too, because we are very heavily involved and responsible for what's happening there. And so we
yeah,
have to hold our governmental officials accountable to help stop what's happening there.
yeah, yeah. And despite all the horrific violence, it's really encouraging to see Colombians rising up like this, and we're seeing, like a second, pink tide, so to speak, occurring all across Latin America, where the socialist party in Bolivia just retook power after the fascist dictatorship military dictatorship that ruled there for about a year. And
Looks like
we
the
just had
leftist one in
elections in
Peru.
Peru.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
good stuff.
And unfortunately, the leftist candidate just barely lost in Ecuador, but we're seeing a movement all across Latin America to like a renewed challenge to U.S. imperialism in Latin America, and it's really exciting to see.
It's exciting to see, and it's incredibly necessary. Global fascism
Yeah,
is on the rise, and we're in a lot of trouble, and it's something that we really need to be cognizant of and work really
yeah,
hard to fight against.
yeah, for sure. One other thing that I wanted to bring up that I've been seeing a lot of lately on the left is, for 4 years we had Trump derangement syndrome, where liberals were freaking out about everything Trump did and even accusing him of things that he didn't do or focusing on things that he didn't do, like colluding with Russia to rig elections and whatnot. But lately I've noticed this phenomenon that one might call derangement about Trump derangement syndrome, where people are so focused on the fact that the corporate media, for the most part, and others, the Democratic Party, just attacked Trump constantly for 4 years, that they seem to be overlooking how now that Trump's gone, there's been a shift away from Trump derangement syndrome, although that still exists, toward kind of reasserting the general imperial goals and focusing on that. So, for example, last year, one of the things that the majority of the corporate media, as well as the Democratic Party, attacked Trump for was his conspiracy theories about how the China virus, as he called it, or Kung flu, or other racist terminology, was engineered in a research lab in Wuhan, and so at that time, he was derided and mocked for that, and everybody was like, "Oh, yeah, that's just a racist conspiracy theory." But then, once Trump was out of office, and then there was a report from a team from the World Health Organization saying basically that they had, they went to Wuhan and did a lot of research to try and investigate the origins of COVID. And in a nutshell, we still don't know for sure, because it's like tracking down a needle in a haystack to figure out where a virus come from. But at this point, they believe that some form of zoonotic origin. In other words, either it came directly from an animal like a bat, or it came from a bat to some intermediate host, like a pangolin, which is I guess some kind of anteater-like creature. That those were the most likely origins of COVID, and the least likely origin of COVID, but they didn't rule it out because they don't have enough evidence to rule it out yet. But the least likely origin is a leak from the Wuhan lab. And they pretty much ruled out what Trump was saying, that it could have been genetically engineered, because basically what it boils down to is there's just too much genetic difference between the viruses that they know of out there in the wild and the SARS-CoV-2 virus. But so anyway, what's happened is that in the last couple of months, the corporate media has shifted over to, almost in unison, as have most politicians on both sides of the aisle, going back from Trump bad, Trump bad, Trump bad, to China bad, China bad, China bad, and oh, well, we don't know for sure, although some people say they do know for sure. But, what about this possibility that it leaked from a lab? Lab leak, lab leak, lab leak, over and over, without, just like when, Iraq was linked with 9/11, without their actually saying that Iraq was involved in 9/11. In this case, they're sort of planting the idea that SARS-CoV-2 could have come from a lab leak without directly accusing China of that. And a lot of left commentators like Jimmy Dore and a few others have correctly condemned the media for what they did last year, where they basically because it was associated with Trump, they just labeled the idea that COVID could have leaked from a lab a crazy conspiracy theory. Nobody should believe that, etc. Which I'm kind of losing track of my train of thought here. So basically, they are missing this shift that there's been in the media and among politicians over the last couple of months to propagandizing us in a different way than they were propagandizing us last year. So whereas last year the focus was all on demonizing Trump, now the focus is on demonizing China without necessarily directly
being explicit about it. Yeah. And I think that people just always need to be very cautious and mindful of how propaganda works, and be consistent, be consistent in your skepticism, because I again, we talked a little bit before the show. I don't watch a lot of Jimmy Dore anymore. I just don't have time, and there's a ton of shows to watch. So I haven't seen anything that he said specifically. But I just think you have to really try to focus on being consistent in your skepticism and in your criticism. And my jumping off point is always that they're lying. And so any official source in the United States of America, that my jumping off point is they're lying. And then I go from there and I try to find as much information as is humanly possible. And it's really difficult because, they have really funneled us into our echo chambers. They're very good at algorithmically keeping you away from information. And so you really have to dig and really try to find, people who are asking tough questions and controversial questions and looking at things that would be labeled conspiracy theories and all this stuff, because those are the people who they're demonized for a reason. And so, it's really hard to be consistent. I understand that, but I think that a lot of times the people need to just take a step back and take a deep breath and just really think about it. And so, the Trump derangement syndrome is still ongoing, and hasn't been in office for months, and people still act like he's this unbelievable threat. And he was never a threat to begin with. Biden's worse. Yes, he's a threat, but you know what I mean, though. He's no special threat. They try to make him out like he was this just unheard of evil, and he's he's an oligarch. He's no different than any of the rest of them. He was just louder about it. That's all.
Biden's worse in the sense that not that his policies are worse, because they're both of them's policies are terrible, but that Trump was more obviously evil. Biden is much more insidiously so.
Yes. And the media covers for Joe Biden. The media didn't cover for Donald Trump. They were constantly calling him out for all the things that he said and did. And like you said, things that he didn't say and do. And the media covers for Joe Biden. They want to talk about the color of Joe Biden's scrunchies, and that the dog peed in the hallway at the White House. Nobody gives a shit, dude. People are dying in Yemen. We're funding a genocide in Palestine. There's a ton of shit going on. Flint still doesn't have clean water. There's a ton of shit going on, and they want to talk about scrunchies. I think that to me has been very obvious, the shift in the media. If you just look at the way that they cover COVID, Donald Trump to Joe Biden, when Donald Trump was in office, that's all they talked about constantly was the death toll and how many numbers and how many new cases and all this stuff. We don't hear about that anymore with Joe Biden in office. You don't hear about you never hear about all these restrictions are being lifted, and they want people to go back to school and back to work and all this stuff. And it's completely different. The coverage is completely different. And it couldn't be more apparent that it's just all very clear propaganda. And propaganda is tough because they're very good at it. They've been doing it for a very long time.
They're still not holding Cuomo accountable for the disaster
they never will.
he presided over in New York.
He's an oligarch.
Yeah.
He's protected. And that's the problem.
Yeah.
People need to wake up and, really recognize that, and stop the partisan bullshit. Like if it's my team, it's okay. Stop that. None of these people are on your team. Andrew Cuomo's not
Yeah.
on your team. Joe Biden's not on your team. Kamala Harris is not on your team. Donald Trump's not on your team. Mitch McConnell's not on your team. AOC is not on your team. None of those people give a shit about you. We are
Yeah.
on our own team. That's it. It's us against them. It's not
That's
red
right.
against blue. And people
Yeah.
really, really need to take that in and like soak it in, because that's the fight. And this whole partisan political bullshit where they've split us into these two red and blue teams. And, if your team does it, it's fine. If their team does it, it's terrible. It's really dangerous. And the propaganda works for both sides. Those people all work mainly they're all owned and operated for the exact same people. There's some varying degrees. Republicans have more oil money maybe than Democrats do, and Democrats have more big tech money than maybe Republicans do. So there's a little bit of differences here and there. I like to call it high school for psychopaths. So there's some cliques, and there's some, teams and the inner workings of things. But for the most part, they're all they all go to the same high school. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So at the big football game on Friday night, it's you against them, and that's what it is. And so I really wish that people would take that in more and just learn to be more skeptical about everything. Everything that they tell you, you should immediately question it because they're lying to you constantly.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would just push back a little bit, or maybe you agree with me on one thing that you said. I don't have as my jumping off point that they're lying. My jumping off point is that I'm suspicious of what they say, and then I look into it.
I generally think they're lying. I mean,
okay. Well, I mean, so for example,
minor difference of opinion, yeah, but yeah, they're almost always lying, so it's usually a pretty safe bet.
But I mean, for example, when they said that Al Qaeda crashed planes into the World Trade Centers and they collapsed, well, that was actually true. But, other things that they said at the same time, like that, Iraq had something to do with it, or, may have had something to do with it, and whatnot, those were lies. So you have to, look everything they say with skepticism, government officials or the corporate media or whatever, and then look into it and, make up your own mind based on independent evidence.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you'll often find out that they're lying. So
yeah, usually they do occasionally throw in like a tiny hint of truth every once in a while just to like maintain a level of credibility. But I mean, they're almost always lying to you, or obfuscating the truth, or misleading, or misdirecting, or you know what I mean? It's incredibly bad. I mean, anybody who's interested in learning about propaganda, I highly recommend doing it. It's an incredibly dangerous thing. It's a threat to all of us, and it's very pervasive in this country. Steve Poikonen says all the time that we are the most propagandized country on earth, and he is absolutely correct. There's no question about it. You can North Korea me all you want. It doesn't even come close. And it's far more covert. And you really are bombarded with it from every direction from the moment you're born. I mean, it comes at you through TV ads and billboards and, magazines at your doctor's office. And if you go to the airport, or, if you're sitting in the waiting room getting your oil changed, mainstream media is plastered on the TVs, and they're all owned and operated by corporations who have an agenda to sell. And, it's a really dangerous thing, and it's really gotten extremely bad. We now have 5 or 6 companies that control 90% of our media. We have all kinds of threats to press freedom and to free speech. We have anti-protest laws in multiple states across the country, and it's only getting worse. And I guess we're kind of circling back here, but that's what makes what's happening to Julian Assange so important, because it really does impact literally everything, every nook and cranny of our lives. It impacts all of it. So
yeah. Well, I mean, now that we have kind of circled back, I think maybe that's a good point to finish up. And again, could you remind everyone of like where they can find out more about the Julian Assange tour, how they can help out and so
Yeah, of
forth.
course. Thanks again for having me on and for doing this. I appreciate you letting me come on and boost the events. It's really helpful. So yeah, if you're interested in finding one of the events, you can go to assangedefense.org/tour. You can also visit their Twitter page, which is Assange Defense at Assange Defense. Again, I'm at Sarcasm Stardust on Twitter, and I've been retweeting and tweeting all of the events. Candles for Assange, again, also does a great job of retweeting all the events. My personal event is on Monday, June 14th in Columbus, Ohio. It's at 1 p.m. At the State House. And we'll be able to see one of our cool billboards that we crowdfunded. It's literally right across the street. So we're going to be able to see that while we're at our action, which is pretty neat. So yeah, definitely check out
Did you say that again? What is it that you crowdfunded? Oh,
the
your billboards.
Yeah. So one of the billboards, we lucked into an unbelievably amazing location. It's actually on top of a building in downtown Columbus. And Reuters and CNN, the Columbus affiliates, are in the building that it sits on top of. And it's across the street and catty corner from the Capitol building. So it literally like overlooks the Capitol building. So it's like a phenomenal location. And our event is at the Capitol building. So we're going to be standing right underneath of it during our event, which is really neat. So yeah, if you're in the Columbus, Ohio area or anywhere near Columbus, Ohio, if you're in Indiana, if you're in West Virginia, Kentucky, wherever, come and see us on June 14th at 1 o'clock. You can meet John and Gabriel Shipton, which is Julian Assange's brother, half brother and father. And if you can't come to our event, find one near you and make it happen. And then also, of course, July 3rd, which is Julian Assange's 50th birthday. We're trying to get as many events going all around the globe that we can. So if you are interested in organizing an event for yourself, please contact me. If you've never organized anything before, we will help you 100%. So yeah, we can help you find an event near you. We can help you organize an event, whatever we need to do. We just, like I said before, we need mass public pressure to turn this around. So anything that you guys can do to help get the word out, whether it's, sharing the events or attending an event or holding your own event is really, really helpful. It's really, we're at kind of a turning point in human history. And what happens in this case is really going to put us on one of two paths. And I would rather not be the fascist path. So if we could prevent that, that would be great. And this would be a huge first step. And, we talked about global fascism being on the rise, and what's happening to Julian Assange is a huge red flag for that. And it really does set a global precedence against journalists, and that's really dangerous. So anything that you guys can do to spread the word about it and to help us raise awareness and support is super beneficial. And yeah, again, thanks for having me on so that we can talk about these events and get the word out.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for coming on, Misty. My guest today has been Misty Winston. This is Jeff Melton from The Bitter Pill, and we will see you next time.